Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Useless Information Podcast. I am your host, Michelle Carey, here to bring you another deep dive into the world's most intriguing, bizarre, and useless information. Today, we will explore the strange and tragic story of Heaven's Gate, a cult that made headlines in the late 1990s. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey that's truly out of this world.
Do you like to read episodic fiction? If you do, welcome to the story of Tommy and Josie on Amazon's Kindle Vella. Tommy is somewhat lost after breaking up with Claire, but he meets Josie, a waitress at a local diner. Bonding over music and adventure, they connect intimately over a weekend. Their romance is fleeting, but they realize their connection transcends time and distance. Will their whirlwind romance become a lifetime of love or fade away like a passing breeze? The Weekend is a heartwarming tale written by HQ, exploring chance encounters and enduring love. Be swept away by the whirlwind romance of Tommy and Josie. Learn more at the HQ website at www.itchque.com. This ad is sponsored by Sunray Multimedia.
Heaven's Gate was a cult founded in the early 1970s by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, two individuals who found a shared interest in alternative spiritual beliefs and extraterrestrial life, despite their very different backgrounds. Applewhite was a music professor, fired for having a relationship with a male student, while Nettles was a nurse interested in astrology. They met in a psychiatric hospital where Applewhite was a patient and Nettles worked. Marshall Applewhite was born May 17, 1931 in Spur, Texas. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister and grew up in a religious household. Applewhite attended Corpus Christi High School and then Austin College, where he earned a degree in philosophy in 1952. He later pursued a master's degree in music at the University of Colorado, focusing on musical theater and becoming known for his impressive baritone voice. In the 1950s and 1960s, Applewhite led a relatively conventional life. He married, he had 2 children, and pursued a career in teaching. He served as the music department chair at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas, from 1966 to 1970. However, his life took a turn when he was allegedly fired for having a relationship with a male student, leading to the end of his marriage. In the early 1970s, Applewhite's life took a dramatic turn. After a near-death experience in the hospital, he met nurse Bonnie Nettles, and the two quickly formed a deep bond. Applewhite and Nettles believed they were the 2 witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation, that they had been chosen to fulfill biblical prophecies. They thought they were extraterrestrial beings, or quote unquote, the 2, who would guide their followers to a higher evolutionary level. They began recruiting followers, and they referred to them as quote unquote, the crew, with the promise of salvation and ascension to a new life in the next level, a physical yet evolved existence in the universe. As they continued to read and study the New Testament sections, their beliefs crystallized. They were convinced they were the chosen ones to fulfill biblical prophecies, and they possessed minds of a higher level than the rest of humanity. They authored a pamphlet that hinted at Jesus' reincarnation as a Texan, alluding to Applewhite himself. Moreover, they believed they were the witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation. Applewhite and Nettles held the conviction that they would be martyred, resurrected, and then beamed up to a spaceship in full view of others. This anticipated event, which they termed the demonstration, was meant to validate their extraordinary claims. However, they were disheartened to find that their ideas were met with skepticism and rejection by other religious communities. Together, they founded what would eventually become known as the Heaven's Gate cult. Applewhite was charismatic and persuasive and served as the group's leader. He convinced his followers that he was in direct contact with aliens and could lead them to a higher plane of existence. The group lived a nomadic lifestyle, traveling across the U.S. in the 70s and 80s, often camping out and living in cars. They funded their travels through various means, including donations from followers and odd jobs. The group's teachings evolved, incorporating elements of Christianity, science fiction, and New Age philosophy. They believed the earth was about to be recycled, and that leaving it immediately was the only chance for survival. In the 1990s, the group settled in San Diego, California, where they began to attract more attention. They created a website, heavensgate.com, which is still active today, and produced several videos explaining their beliefs. The group also became known for their uniform appearance, including matching black outfits and buzz cut hairstyles. Applewhite began preaching about Earth's impending recycling and the need for his followers to leave their human bodies or vehicles behind. He believed that the Hale-Bopp comet, due to pass close to Earth in 1997, was being trailed by a spaceship that would take their souls to another level of existence. This became the turning point for Heaven's Gate in 1997 when the arrival of that comet came. Applewhite convinced his followers that an alien spacecraft, again, was tailing the comet and that this was a sign they had been waiting for. He proposed that if they committed suicide, their souls would be transported onto the spaceship and taken to the next level. But in March of 1997, Applewhite and 38 of his followers died in a mass suicide at their mansion in San Diego, believing that their souls would be transported to the spaceship trailing the Hale-Bopp comet. They had ingested a lethal cocktail of phenobarbital and vodka and then laid down to die, hoping to leave their bodily containers and ascend to the spaceship. This mass suicide was the largest in U.S. history and shocked the world. It marked a tragic end to one of the most infamous cults in American history. Applewhite's influence and the potential dangers of unchallenged belief systems. The aftermath of the Heaven's Gate mass suicide was a media frenzy. The group's website, which had previously been a curiosity, was now a chilling testament to their beliefs. In the years since the tragedy, Heaven's Gate has become a symbol of the dangers of cult mentality. The group's beliefs, while seemingly outlandish, were no different than many other new religious movements in their use of existing religious and cultural narratives to create a compelling vision of salvation. What sets Heaven apart, however, is the tragic way their story ends. The group's belief in their leaders and their vision of salvation was so strong that they were willing to take their own lives in pursuit of it. This is a chilling reminder of the power of belief. The Heaven's Gate story also raises questions about how society responds to new religious movements. In the aftermath of the tragedy, there was much discussion about the need for greater oversight of such groups. However, this raises complex issues about religious freedom and the rights of individuals to hold unconventional beliefs. Today, the Heaven's Gate website, like I said, it still exists, maintained by a couple of former members who did not participate in the mass suicide. It stands as a digital monument to the group of people who believed so strongly in their vision of the future that they were willing to die for it. Heaven's Gate was permeated through pop culture in various ways since the tragic event in 1997. The cult and its mass suicide have been referenced in numerous TV shows, movies, and music. For instance, in music, the rapper Lil Uzi Vert caused a stir in 2018 when his album cover for Eternal A-Tape was said to resemble the Heaven's Gate logo, leading to threats of legal action from surviving members of the cult. In television, the cult has been referenced in popular shows like Family Guy and American Horror Story. Cult. The story of Heaven's Gate has also been the subject of several documentaries and podcasts, including this one, but also a 2020 HBO Max docuseries titled Heaven's Gate: The Cult of Cults, which explores the group's beliefs and the circumstances leading to mass suicide. These references highlight the enduring fascination and horror associated with the Heaven's Gate cult and its tragic end. And that's the story of Heaven's Gate, a tale of belief, manipulation, and tragedy. It's a stark reminder of the power of belief and the lengths some people will go to in search of salvation. And while it may seem like a piece of useless information, it's a story with much to teach us about human capacity for faith, the dangers of unchecked charismatic leadership, and the fine line between religious freedom and societal responsibility. And that's all for this episode of the Useless Information Podcast. I'm Michelle Carey, your guide to the world's most intriguing and bizarre and yes, useless information. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the strange and fascinating world of Heaven's Gate. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the most useless information can be the most interesting. And if you like what you're hearing on the Useless Information Podcast, please take the time to hit that follow or subscribe button so you're kept up to date when another episode goes live. And if you like what you're hearing, do me a big favor and leave a review if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever major podcast platform you're on. And if you're listening to this on YouTube or Rumble, please like and subscribe. Your follow, your subscribe, and or review lets the podcast guys know, hell yeah, I'm picking up what Michelle is putting down. I've also expanded this podcast to Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Michelle S. Carey. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you next time for more fascinating and seamless useless information. But as always, I'm grateful for your listenership, and I thank you for being a part of the Useless Information group. Today and always, until next time, be well, stay safe, and give love.
This podcast has been produced by Sunray Multimedia and Michelle Carey. Music by CreatorMix.com. The YouTube audio library and editing by Descript.